All right. We're about a minute away. So everybody that's here, if you're joining us and you're here for the show, please put in where you're from. If you have any questions, if you're on the chat, just enter your questions in the chat. I've got the amazing Jeff Wright and Rickey Gene Wright, and they're not related, by the way. But we got the Wright brothers here today, so that's exciting. Both are incredible warriors and resources in their own way. If you notice, I'm wearing my Kansas City Chiefs jersey today. I promise I won't wear it every time we have a show, but I'm getting the opportunity to continue celebrating their Super Bowl win from last night. I didn't have anything to do with it other than cheer, but I've been pulling for them to win since I was a kid. So I'm from Kansas City, and I know Jeff is in St. Louis. Rickey Gene is here with me in the Dallas area, and we all have our perspectives. We're all Elite 100 certified BeeKonnected coaches, and we're here to serve the audience. And today's topic on BeeKonnected, what in the world is engagement? We're going to be talking about getting engagement on and with the BeeKonnected platform. So Jeff and I had talked about this. I know Rickey and I have chatted about that before. And there's a lot of things. You come to the party with a perspective, maybe from Facebook or from LinkedIn or however else you're doing it on other platforms. And all I can say is there are things that work here that may or may not work there, and there are things that do work a lot better here. So with that kind of preface, I'm going to open the discussion with I'm going to have Jeff. Jeff brought up some interesting questions, observations, things like that. So Jeff, on the topic of engagement using and with BeeKonnected, what are your questions or thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that, David. And yeah, it was a great game there with the Super Bowl. This is a Super Bowl, but yeah, go Chiefs. I mean, they definitely pulled one out. Is a great game yesterday. But anyway, as far as using BeeKonnected, when you're coming over, it's a social business platform. And although I think a lot of us are going to come to a platform like this, it's got to be new. We're got to be navigating that. There's always got to be some things that we're got to be any type of new platform. There's a learning curve, but some best practices of I think what we're sharing about and we're collaborating and we're sharing perspectives on right now. There were some things that I noticed right out of the gate when it comes to engagement. Some things that maybe you might get that you're like, well, I this didn't go the way I thought it was going to, and these are some things that I'm going to benefit more from. And obviously, naturally, if we want to have deeper level connections, we want to have more engagement. And some of the things that I noticed right out of the gate is don't if I had to say what not to do, some of the things that I think of, and I was a little guilty of this at first, but I quickly reeled it in and started paying attention to it. Is when you're joining a new platform like this, don't ignore this. This is simple level, the chat. We actually have, I don't know if you've noticed this, Rickey or David, we have some new members that come in to BeeKonnected, and it's as simple as just not looking at the group chats or the chats. And what happens when you do that is, especially if you're waiting 2 weeks, you forget about it. But then that one connection that you actually wanted to do, they actually think in their mind that you just completely forgot about them. That what the way that you're trying to connect with people, and we naturally do that because we just think that, oh, I'm getting on this platform, people are just going to like, they're just going to try to spam me or what. But that's not what BeeKonnected is about. You're not going to like some of the things that maybe you're accustomed to on some other platforms. It's got to be refreshing when you're over here. You actually are going to be like, oh, you're going to be making those deeper level connections. So you actually want to, one of the best practices I've seen so far is people on the members on the BeeKonnect, they appreciate when you reply in a short period of time. Maybe it doesn't have to be right away, but within 24 hours is very realistic of like saying like, hey, like, yeah. And that goes a long way on BeeKonnected, by the way. So that's been my experience is it's a very simple, easy to build in your daily routine. Just spend a few minutes a day. It doesn't have to be at the same time every day, but make it a habit to go on, BeeKonnected, look at your chats, and don't ignore the people that are trying to make a real conversation with you. Don't ignore that.
I think that's actually, there's a level of brilliance there. And it's also kind of funny that we're talking about this because before social media, before all the noise that we experience on all the other platforms, even when you're talking about direct messages, like whether it's on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, you're used to bots, you're used
Right.
to somebody just spamming you, just, they're out there and they're typing the same message to 1,500 other people. And that's not what this is about. So if you're on this platform, you're new, and your behavior, you've become accustomed to just, okay, the stuff coming into my inbox or my cat file is just noise. Interestingly enough, it's also the same. We've gotten conditioned in email. I've got two primary email boxes that I have that aren't BeeKonnected, and those email boxes, I get on average
Bombarded.
about 700 emails a day
Yeah.
in those two email boxes. And so there's so much noise, and that's the beauty here. The other thing that the other piece of brilliance that you're suggesting there is the fact that this is still a very small community. So even if you go and check your chats and maybe you just have one or two, that doesn't mean that you're not getting connected. That means that if that one person is reaching out to you to have a conversation, to begin building a relationship, that is, I'd say, I submit, is probably 1,000 times more valuable than anybody else that reaches out to you on any other platform, unless you already know them. Does that
Yeah.
resonate with you?
And I think and that would be a mistake. Like some of the, like you were mentioning before, taking the things that maybe gave you the headaches, the frustrations with some other platforms.
Right.
Don't assume over here BeeKonnected that that's what's got to happen again. A matter of fact, it's quite the opposite. It's got to be refreshing. You're gonna actually be like, oh, well, that member actually is going back and forth, and when I jump on that call, I am making a deeper connection. I'm actually getting to know that person at another level, and on top of that, when you post and it goes to all the members, you're also going to be shocked. You're going to be very surprised. Whereas, we're not. It's not about comparison. I have to give examples. Okay, for example, if you were to do the same post on Facebook, if you were to do it on LinkedIn, wherever you're doing it, some of those algorithms, they purposely are only showing those posts to a very small fraction of that. It's done on purpose, unless you're like a top influencer and you're like you're like. So what I'm trying to say is when you put your marketing hat on and you do a post and you're getting any type of engagement, whether it's likes or especially comments, go ahead and reply to that, because what it does is it's showing your own community that you're building here on BeeKonnected. It's showing that you're engaged, and it's also showing that you care. People
Right.
like people want to know that you care about, like, okay, so if you've taken the time to post some good content, I mean, obviously put some thought into your content, but we're just going to assume that what you're posting is valuable. So you're posting some valuable content and you're putting that on BeeKonnected. Don't be surprised that you're going to get some comments on there, but you don't just like let it hang out there. Actually reply to that. Let people know that you're reading what people are posting on there, and actually reply to that, because that's going to help you go to the next level. It's going to help you um, resonate more and build more community.
Rickey, what do you think? You're coming at this from a different angle because Jeff is in St. Louis. You're here. We're in in-person networking communities,
Right.
and so when somebody reaches out to you in our Warrior Networking here in Dallas, and they send you a message or an email, do you view that differently than somebody who sends you a chat message on Facebook or LinkedIn? And how does, how do you think this compares?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm still working with the. I guess my reality is that after 12 years of doing in-person networking, and I'm still doing it, I'm still waiting or figuring out how BeeKonnected can jump up to that level of person to person contact. Because yes, whenever I'm contacted by somebody that I've met in person, that's that's alarms go off. Everything. I'm trying my best to get back with them as soon as possible, even if they're just asking me a question.
Yeah.
Uh, and so the people that I've met on BeeKonnected, unless I've already met them, in person networking. So I belong to, let me see, one, two, three, I guess about four different days of networking, breakfast or lunch kind of things. And so uh, if someone just on LinkedIn or Facebook or something contacts me, it's kind of oh well, I don't even really know who they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a level of accountability, and that's the whole thing here. Number one, we're not one of a billion people here on the platform, right? We're one of, say, 25,000. So first of all, it's a very small community. That still seems like a lot when you've got 2,500 here locally in our group. So 25,000 seems like, but once you've had, and that's one of the things that's important when you talk about engagement. Okay, so somebody reaches out to you on a chat and they send you a chat. What is your first? I'm going to ask. I have a strategy, but what is your first strategy when somebody reaches out to you directly to
Well,
to
I
get to know you?
immediately, yeah, I immediately, tell them that sounds great. Let's be connected, and let's continue on with conversations. The ones that have been disappointing to me is that I will get that someone has joined for free,
Right.
and I'm connected to them, and I send them several uh, chats, and they never respond.
Yeah, and I think
Well,
there's a lot of reasons for that. And I
yeah,
think that's one of the first learnings that people need to understand is if somebody showed up to our networking meeting and they showed up and they gave their 30 seconds and we said, "Oh, that Rickey Gene looks like a great guy." And one of the requirements to become a member in our group, right, is to have 3 one-to-ones with people, have give referrals and and that kind of thing. And all of a sudden they reach out to you and say, "Okay, I saw your and I want to have a one-to-one." If that person just ignores you, I mean, that's kind of an affront. So back to what Jeff said, the important thing is that when you're on the platform, don't just be blasting out your message. Don't be like the
yeah,
guy that shows up in a networking meeting, passes out their business cards and says, "Okay, I'll wait for everybody to call me."
right.
That ain't it. That's not what we're doing here. We're talking to real people. I know Jeff now. We've never met in person, but I can see him on the screen. We've talked. We've talked on the phone. We've worked through some things. Rickey, I've seen you in person, but this is the next best thing. It's not some anonymous voice, on the thing, because then you start to behave a lot like the things that go on the other platforms.
Right. Well, and I have a theory for that, Ricky, because I know it's like I said, no platform, nothing's perfect, but I think that's why we have us as coaches. Is every new member that comes on, that's why we're coaching, because we're actually saying like, hey, maybe you've been accustomed to being lost in the noise and lost in the shuffle here. So we're asking you, when you become a free member or when you go into paid member and you get the extra benefits, we're asking you if you it's we're we're actually saying that this is a different experience here, that you're actually going to get more engagement. So
Mhm.
we're actually encouraging you that right away when you get on there, we're asking you to maybe check your chats, check your engagement, your posts, because you're going to be surprised that when you interact with that, we don't want you to just come over here, set it and forget it. Maybe because you're used to doing that, like with Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever. That's like a bad habit, maybe because you haven't. I'm not saying that all of you listening to this have done that, but if you have been frustrated, I know I've been there before, where you're like, oh, well, shoot, I'm just gonna like drop that thing because that's a waste of my time. I'm not getting any engagement over there. But here, us as coaches, we want to encourage to be like, well, actually, you, uh, not maybe 100% of the time, but you'd be surprised that, especially for the ones that are being engaged on BeeKonnected, there's going to be more of that predictability. So we just want to encourage more and more of the free members that come and be like, no, this is different. Let's open up those communication channels and build that into your daily routine of like, yes, actually, I want to be monitoring my chat at least once a day. It doesn't have to be for a long period of time, but just a little bit. And we want to start building in some of those routines or encouraging it.
No, I think you're right. I think recreating habits that we know in interpersonal. I mean, I just had a lunch meeting with a client, right? Just before this. And if I just sat at the table and just the whole time talked about what I wanted to talk about and never bothered to listen, or somebody else brought up something, I said, oh, that's good. Now let me talk to you again about what I'm doing. And if I just kept coming back to that, I mean, that is, if you looked at somebody and there was 8 people at the table, right? And if that person was there, how would you feel about that one person? You would think they were a jerk, right? You would think I was a jerk. You'd think I didn't care about anybody but myself. And I might have really good stuff to offer, right? I might have a really good thing to share or sell, but if it's just all about me. So you said it earlier, Jeff, when you first started, it really, to me, translated what you said into listening and responding. And that's so important. Rickey, what do you think?
Yeah, it is a little, I think it's a little bit getting used to, and maybe other people are getting used to it too, is that we think of BeeKonnected just like all the other social
Correct. I agree with that.
platforms. And so it has to be you have to rethink the whole thing, because the other platforms are sometimes kind of a nuisance.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you have to get that out of your brain, that this is different. And I actually think that it's pretty neat that the platform has gotten even better pretty quickly, instead of getting worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and I think the thing is, one of the things we deal with, Rickey's been on the platform for almost as long as I have. And as he points out, it has evolved. And so at first, there was a lot of good reasons why people weren't necessarily active right on the platform. So there was not a lot of reason, you'd kind of like, oh, okay, I'll come back, and you come back a few days later, and all of a sudden, the cycle time for somebody reaching out and then getting back is a lot less, but is a lot longer. But now there's no reason. In fact, the people that I see that I reach out to, I'm going to share in the chat, but I post this when I reach out to somebody to connect on the connection generator. I say, hi, I'm, and who I am. I say, thanks for connecting, whatever their name is. How can I serve you on your BeeKonnected journey? Let's schedule a one-to-one here in my virtual meeting room. And I give them my virtual meeting room. And so you can see my virtual meeting room is set up in the lower left-hand corner here with a schedule of one-to-one. And I'll say, just go to the lower left-hand corner if they can't figure it out, which most people look at the thing, go, oh, that's where. And I don't have to be in the room. And then they know that they just come back to that room when the time that they select on that works on my calendar. It makes it very organic. And it's actually easier, and Rickey would attest to this, it's actually made, even in my in-person networking group, it's easier for me now to have one-to-ones and get to know more people in the group, because even though we met in person, I can say, well, we don't have to find a location, find a place to meet.
Right.
know all this stuff. All you have to do is here's my link, here's my QR code, whatever. Here's my virtual meeting room. Go there, schedule a 1-to-1, and then we'll meet. We lost Rick. Well, we'll meet and there, same place, and get to know each other. And then I begin the same journey I would if we were here and had a cup of coffee and whatever, except it can happen much faster.
What I think I have a challenge too, Ricky. This might be helpful because you probably as a coach, we might want to find ourselves coaching especially the new users we're bringing into community, because they're people just, they don't know what they don't know, and if they haven't experienced it, is when you have like like whatever group you have, Ricky, is don't be afraid to, just like what David has been doing for quite a while. Of course, he's been on the platform for the longest on this call, so he's just has more experience doing it as well, which is great. Though we can learn a lot from what David is doing. Is one of my challenges, not only for you, Ricky, but for myself, because we have a new group as well, but is like thinking about maybe over the next 2 to 3 weeks, talking with your community about like especially the ones that you feel would be most willing to attend, is to go ahead and just be like, hey, just what David is talking about, like not maybe the first couple of times it's not a habit yet, but after 2 or 3 times coming on a show like that, or within your group where you actually have a show for your group, and before you know it, maybe it starts off small, but it gets bigger and bigger, and people have now built the habits, and you're building it in. Like, by the way, don't forget to I'll be putting stuff in the group chats, and before you know it, your group chats are now like a lot more, because so leverage the groups too on the engagement, and then leverage the group chats also for, just like what David is doing here, for your live shows and your broadcasting, because before you know it, you're building community, you're having more engagement, and you're actually getting people to have those habits. And they even put it on their calendar, like, hey, by the way, I know that David's Vision Warrior or Warrior Networking has got to be at such and such time. I'm going to put that on my calendar. And some of the new members that come in, they're just not accustomed to doing that, and they need help to build that practice into their weekly, monthly habits, or daily.
We talked a little bit about chats and 1-to-1, and I see that Laura Lee Kinney is in the audience here. And Laura Lee, feel free to type anything in the chat that you have. But one of the things I found, I was on a show that she was on earlier today doing a little bit of training. And one of the other things I found pretty effective, which I haven't done as well, is when I'm doing one of these shows or I've got something, we kind of assume that because we posted it or because it's on the main homepage, if it's a Live in the Hive show, that everybody's going to know. But there's a word that I use. It's called accountability. And there's a lack of accountability unless I reach out. Like I reached out to Jeff, and I reached out to Ricky, and I said, hey, can you be on the show? Can you be with me here? And Jeff said, yes, I can. So I don't have to worry about, is Jeff going to show up? Because right. Jeff has got integrity. Ricky has integrity. Ricky, I can always count on. And the same thing here with Laura Lee. When you have other coaches here or other people that want to be engaged, that are on the platform, and it's clear that they are attempting to do something, then it behooves you to figure out not how to sell them, but how to serve them by figuring out what they're trying to do on the platform. And if you approach those people, whether they're in a group, whether there's somebody that posts interesting stuff on a feed, or somebody that you interact with on a show like this, all of a sudden, you've just changed the whole game. And you've gone, as I always say, from the top of the funnel, which is they know you exist, maybe, to doing what we're doing 1-to-1 here with the click of a button. It can be AI generated. It can be your own intention generated. And that's an important strategy you need to look at, is treat this as if you walked into a mixer and you saw somebody or heard somebody say something interesting and you wanted to follow up with them, right? That's what you're doing on this platform with a relatively small group of people. Now, as a group grows, guess what? You could have 25,000 relationships that goes to a group that now is exploding to 1 million people plus, and they all know you. Those 25,000 people are out there endorsing you, recommending you, referring you to other people on the platform. Just think of how valuable that investment is in engagement at that point, right? Laura Lee, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to post them in the chat if you do. So any other thoughts? We're about 5 minutes to land the plane. And as I said, we are going to do these for 30 minutes and we're going to be done. And if we'll probably queue up things that we think about, oh, next time I'm going to take it a little further, because we've talked about things like this, but it hasn't specifically been how to engage on the platform. Rickey expressed a frustration I've heard over and over and over again, is new people come onto the platform, you try to connect with them and they don't even respond.
Right.
Okay. So that's going to be a reality until people begin to see us create the reality we want to see, right? Which is be as responsive as we can possibly be.
Yeah,
right?
and unfortunately, I think there's just got to be a little bit extra effort. I know, Rickey, a lot of us don't want to have to hear that. Not saying that you're not doing it, but myself included, is to initially start those habits. We might find ourselves having to remind, just like what David's had to do, had to remind some, especially those that we feel like we can count on, but they haven't built it in the habit. They haven't put the groups or live shows that you might have. They actually haven't put that on their calendar yet. So they forget about it. So just kind of like politely reminding folks that, like, okay, I understand this isn't a habit yet. And so the first few times we're gotta build those routines, those habits, and then before you know it, now there's that consistency there.
Right. I agree. I think the consistency is a thing. I think you've, as Rickey's theme song for my podcast says, it's a journey every day.
Right.
And it's not a race to see how many people knows your name. Time is what we're really trying to fold time by not having to go through all that nonsense you go through on social media to really get to the point we're at right now. I mean, you look at how quickly, Jeff, you and I developed a relationship on this platform.
Mm-hmm.
With you being in St. Louis, me not knowing you at all, you being referred by somebody in the UK who came from, wherever. See, but think about it. We're actually working together. We're trying to do things. You're meeting with Christine, who I brought on and you
Right.
guys are partnering, doing the unstoppable stuff. There's all kinds of things that can happen. And you look back and go, wow, that really happened fast.
Yeah, there's a lot of synergistic, collaborative efforts that are going on behind the scenes, and I think we want to remind members that, well, this is different. I know it's got to take some time. There's a learning curve. Everyone has a different pace that they have, so we just have to be. I recommend that we're a little patient, but that we don't feel like we're being spammy, because we're not. But we do, unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but we do find ourselves maybe needing to put those friendly reminders into the, and if it's not in the BeeKonnected chat, because they're not even checking the chat like maybe we want them to, maybe we do have to text them. Maybe we do have to email. We got to find where they're at and then have them build into their habits of putting that on their calendar so they don't forget.
I agree. I think, again, and by the way, we are always learning, right? I'm always learning things in the networking space. That's one of the things people don't realize when you're networking is every conversation is an opportunity to learn something, not just learn something that maybe you didn't know, but learn how people respond to what you think you know or what you're saying. And that's such a powerful, lesson that I had to learn along the way is I'm not showing up always to teach. I'm really showing up most of the time to learn. And if somebody can get something of benefit out of the conversation that I've given, great, I've had an impact. but more importantly, I've learned a lot from Jeff already. I learned stuff from Rickey every day, and I'm learning stuff from people on the platform all the time. Well, any other closing remarks? We got 1 minute to land the plane. And then again, I'm going to be respectful for even those of us on the stage. Any other final thoughts, Rickey?
No, but I have a question for Jeff.